Hey, what is up? My name is Catherine and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing 3 looks using the Colourpop Sweet Talk palette. So this launched about 3 weeks ago. It launched right before I went on spring break. And I think this palette is so beautiful, which might be surprising to you guys because I don't really buy a lot of neutrals palettes anymore. But I love peach eyeshadow. It's like my favorite neutral leaning shade family, if that makes any type of sense. I think it's so pretty. I love it, especially for springtime. So this retails for $18, which is a little bit more expensive than Colourpop's typical 12-pan palette. However, this includes pressed glitters and Super Shock shadows, which is new for their palettes and I think is super exciting. So these two are the pressed glitters. It's Prima Drama and Early Morning. And then this up here is the Super Shock shadow side to side. And I know a lot of people were concerned that the Super Shock shadow would dry out in a palette formula, but this actually has a magnetic closure, so I feel like that's going to help keep the Super Shock shadow nice and moist. So I'll be doing 3 voiceover looks using this palette. I do one halo eye, a very blown out peachy spring type of look, and then I do this a little bit more dramatic half cut crease type of thing, and I use most of the shades in this palette. So I will give you my thoughts on this palette at the end of this video, if I think it's worth the money, all of that fun stuff. If you're new here, make sure you're subscribed. Typically post videos on Wednesdays and Sundays. If you're excited to learn more about this palette, make sure you give this a thumbs up, and I will see you after the 3 tutorials. Let's get started. For look number 1, I'm dipping a BH Studio Pro 16 into Dream Maker, and I am lightly dusting that shade into my crease as a transition shade. Next, I am dipping an Alamar Cosmetics blending brush into the shade Meadow, and I'm using that to deepen up the crease, and I'm gently bringing that shade into my inner and outer corner as well. Then I'm using a Coastal Scents Pro Fluff brush to pack that same shade into my inner and outer corner. I just really want that color to be nice and intense. Next, I'm using my Sigma E45 and going into the shade Feel Free, and I'm using that to really deepen up the inner and outer corner. This is a perfect brush for that purpose. And then once I have placed that shade down, I'll just be using that same Coastal Scents brush to help blend out the edges. I want everything to still be soft and pretty, even though it is a little bit of a deeper and more dramatic look. Then I am carving out the center of my lid with the Makeup Revolution Cut Crease canvas. This stuff is pretty new and I absolutely love it so far. Now I'm dipping my finger into the shade Prima Drama. This is one of the pressed glitters in the palette, and I'm packing that onto the center of my lid. Once I have that placed down nicely, I'm just going into my Alamar Cosmetics paddle brush to really get a precise application at the edges of my lid. This glitter is so pretty. I'm seriously obsessed with it. Then before finishing up the rest of my face, I'm just doing a quick wing because this look is a little more dramatic and fancy than the rest of the looks that I'm doing, so I thought a wing would go nicely with it. For my under eye, I'm dipping a flat liner brush into Feel Free, and I'm just running that along my lower lash line to very gently line that. Then I'm dipping a Luxie 111 back into the shade Meadow, and I'm very, very softly running that along the lower lash line as well. Then I am dipping a Kylie pencil brush into the Super Shock Shadow side to side, and I'm popping that onto my inner corner. Once I've placed that down, I do place a little bit of Flexitarian over the top of that as well. And then this is the final look for look number 1. For look number 2, I'm starting out with a BH Studio Pro 16 and the shade Dreammaker again, and I'm gently swirling this shade outwards from the outer corner. This is the most soft and blown out of the looks, so I just want everything to be very, very nice and blended. Then I'm dipping a Coastal Scents Pro Fluff into the shade Meadow, and I'm doing these same motions, keeping everything nice and light and swirly. I'm just adding a little bit more depth to that outer corner. Then once that's placed down, I just swirl over the edges with the BH Cosmetics number 16 brush just to make sure it's really, really pretty and soft and blended. Then I'm dipping a little slightly fluffy but slightly flat Kylie brush into the shade Garden Party, and I'm wetting the brush and then packing this onto the lid. This shade is so, so pretty. I love a good peachy shimmer, and it's really nice and intense and metallic, especially when you wet the brush. For liner, I'm keeping it real simple, and I'm just using my Wet n Wild brown liquid eyeliner. I like to use brown eyeliner for slightly softer looks just because it's a little less harsh while still really defining your eye. Then for the under eye, I'm keeping it so simple. I'm just using a flat liner brush from AOA Studio and lining my under eye with the shade Meadow, just sort of blending it as I go along. And then I'm popping the Super Shock highlighter in Flexitarian on my inner corner and brow bone with a Luxie 141 brush. And this is the final look for look number 2. This is my favorite out of the 3 looks that I'm showing you guys today. For the last look, I am starting out with the shade West Side, and surprise, surprise, using my BH Cosmetics number 16 brush again to place that into my crease as sort of a transition shade. And then next, I'm taking a BH number 5 and going into the shade ICYMI. I think that stands for In Case You Missed It. And I'm using that to really deepen up the crease. This is a great brush for adding some definition to the crease while still being able to really blend out those edges. Then I'm dipping my Sigma E45 into the shade Feel Free, and I'm alternating between putting that shade into my crease and outer corner and then blending out the edges of it with the BH number 5. I'm going to be carving out the crease, so I do want a little bit of definition along the crease. That way when I place down the concealer, there'll be a really nice line of definition there, but I also want it to be blended at the edges. So I do take a little bit of time with this step, just alternating brushes and packing and blending, but it's worth it in my opinion. 86 years later, I am carving out my crease again using the Makeup Revolution cut crease canvas. I'm starting out with a little lime crime brush and decided that that wasn't working so well, so I just switched to my Alamar Cosmetics paddle brush. For the lid, I am packing the pressed glitter shade Early Morning onto that lid with this little Wet n Wild brush. It's like sort of flat but has a round paddle shape to it. It's really great for this purpose. Then I'm just using my Sigma E45 to blend out the edges of that glitter using the shade Feel Free. For liner, I am doing a small wing using my black felt tip Tarte eyeliner. It is a very, very teeny wing just because I feel like this look is dramatic enough. I don't need a big old wing to add a whole lot of drama to it. For my under eye, I am just lining my under eye with that shade Feel Free, and then I am gently blending it out with the Sigma E45. I just use the tip of that brush to very, very softly blend it out. I don't want it to be like this dramatic, smoky, blended out under eye, just because that look doesn't look too cute on me. And once again, I'm just popping a little bit of Flexitarian onto the inner eye. It's like my holy grail highlighter. And this is the final look for look number 3. Alright, so those 3 looks are done, and I just realized that these lights were on for the last look, which I've been trying to leave those off for tutorials because it gives you a more accurate color story on camera, so sorry about that. But time for the tea on this palette. First of all, it's just beautiful. Like the packaging, this holographic rainbow thing, I think is so pretty. The inside of the packaging, the cover of the packaging, like it's just so beautifully designed in my opinion. I think for a more neutral palette, this is still pretty unique. Like I don't have a palette in my collection with a color story that's quite similar to this. I do have some palettes where it has similar matte shades. I have some palettes that have similar shimmer shades, but not really a palette where it has everything in here. I really like the introduction of the Super Shock and the glitter shadows or pressed glitters, whatever you want to call them. I like the shade Prima Drama better than the shade Early Morning in terms of the glitters. Both of them are very beautiful. They both have like a color shift to them where like depending on which way you're leaning and how the light's hitting them, they're gonna look very different. Prima Drama has more of a chunky glitter, whereas this is more of a finely milled glitter, and I'm flipping you guys off, that's cute. This one's more of a finely milled glitter. This one feels a little sandier is like the word I would use. It sounds weird to describe a glitter as sandy, but it does feel sandy. I just like the formula of Prima Drama better. I think they're pretty similar looking. Prima Drama has more of a rose gold color story to it, where this one is more of a gold and chartreuse, but both of them have like a pinky red shift to them in the light. And I also love the introduction of the Super Shock shadow. So it's a pretty basic shade, but this is like my favorite type of shadow. Like, I love just like a very pearly, champagne-y light shade. Like, for my skin tone, it works great as an inner eye highlight, or if I am doing a more neutral look, it's a beautiful all over the lid shade. And the Super Shock shadow just brings an intensity to it that you wouldn't get in a pressed shadow. So I really love that that's in there. It kind of amps up the value of just a more basic, pearly, champagne-y shade that, like, we probably all have a shade like that in our collection, but not in this type of formula. The mattes perform absolutely beautifully, exactly how I'd expect Colourpop mattes to perform, and I love the peach color story. I just love peachy eyeshadows. This normal shimmer Garden Date is gorgeous. I love this. It reminds me of my Essence Metal Shock shadow that is a peachy shade as well. The shimmer Melody I could have done without in the palette. It just doesn't have that intensity that I have come to expect from Colourpop shadows. Like, it's still very pretty, but I mean, it's the actual shade isn't that unique, and it's not like a crazy metallic shadow where I could have done with something else. I kind of would have liked to have maybe another Super Shock shadow in here as opposed to another pressed metallic shadow. But that's of course just a matter of opinion, and I'm sure there are people out there who absolutely love that shade, so it's just my opinion. Overall, I'm happy with my purchase of this palette, but I was expecting to be. At this point, I'm very familiar with Colourpop's formula. They're hands down my favorite brand. I have a ton of their palettes. It's more of a shock to me when I don't like one of their products than when I do, and since I already knew I liked the color story, I was expecting to be very happy with this. Let me know down below if you decided to purchase this palette, or if you will be deciding to purchase this palette. Let me know your thoughts on it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope it was helpful. If you were wanting to know more about this palette, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye!